My name is Shelly Schuster, and I'm the president of the Keck Graduate Institute. On today's podcast, I'm thrilled to be chatting with Vanessa Belozeroff, who is Amgen's Executive Director for Global Program Management and Strategic Operations. Vanessa is an experienced leader with a track record in the biotechnology and pharmaceutical industries. Her background spans business operations, strategy, drug development, clinical operations, quality, organizational efficiency, and change management. She previously has worked at companies with such a broad range as Essent, Sanofi, Abbott Laboratories, and Johnson & Johnson. Vanessa earned her bachelor's degree at the University of Idaho and her MBA at Eastern University. Welcome, Vanessa. We're thrilled to have you here today to visit KGI. Let me just start out by asking to talk about sort of your career path. You started in Idaho with an interest in biochemistry, molecular biology, and those kind of things. How did it go off, or where did it go? Not go off. How did it move to the business part of the world?
So I did start my career as a chemist working at the University of Idaho. And when I moved to Philadelphia, I started my career actually in a small pharma company focusing on AIDS and cancer research with a company called US Bioscience. And I was, at one point, one of their only chemists that worked there because it was a very small organization. It went through some ebbs and flows relative to size. But one thing that always happens with my brain is I was always wondering what happens next and what does that take you on a career path is change. So understanding where I wanted to learn more and then exploring that through different avenues took me through being a chemist and then working in clinical development and in program management. And so that's what I've spent the majority of my career actually in a place where I'm managing at the program or portfolio level, helping to establish the strategies for portfolio of products and helping to make sure that we're delivering for the value of optimizing those assets.
Thank you. Let me ask, for those of us who are not as knowledgeable about what goes on in large biotech companies, what is your role? I mean, your title is Executive Director for Global Program Management and Strategic Operations. What's included under that portfolio, if you will?
So my current role and what I've been doing since 2012 at Amgen has been focused on our biosimilars business. So the biosimilars organization is a separate entity and a business unit within our company that's focused on developing the biosimilars for patients. And what I do in that capacity is I help to establish the program level and the portfolio level strategies and also support the business operations and the business strategy for our group so that we're always this learning and fine-tuned machine. As we learn, we must then take those learnings, incorporate them, and work better. So I'm always helping to sharpen the pencil to improve speed, agility, flexibility so that we move faster and that we understand what's holding us up in the organization and helping to come up with solutions and options for helping to remove those barriers.
It seems obviously a very, very exciting and dynamic kind of a position because these things obviously, that your competition is changing constantly and you're looking literally at global markets. What is the biggest obstacle that you folks find in terms of not even so much the competition, because I know that's probably proprietary, but what are the personal, in terms of the people that you work with, what would you like to have that you don't have? What kind of skills, what sort of even maybe emotional intelligence kinds of things would you like to see in the people that you work with, especially the younger ones?
Well, I'm very fortunate at Amgen. We have a bunch of A players, and that's the one fun thing about working with Amgen. It's a bunch of really smart, driven individuals, and that makes it a real draw to come to work. When I think about kind of coaching and mentoring some of the newer colleagues to their careers, I really, encourage them to not get bored, to not look at the opportunity of their career as having an end in sight, but to actually look at the things that they might get frustrated with and not see the end, but then see the pathways that they can actually go around and help build and take charge at making change within an organization to help it grow into a company that they will be very proud of in their lifetime. There's, millennial surveys that are out there that say, that millennials are going to leave their jobs in, 2 years or 5 years. And I get a little frustrated by this because I want to tell them this is not their, when I'm a millennial speaking, I don't want to be looking across the room saying, this is your fault. This is your job to fix this. You have to turn the tide back on yourself and say, I can take a leadership role and impart the change that I want to make, come to fruition, so that I am building a place that is actually stronger for myself and for my colleagues and for the future.
We of course are aware that and we consider Amgen the A team as well, especially since our 60 or so of our alumni are there, and we know they're the A players, so there's really no question about it. Let me be a little bit more serious. Asking you sort of outside of your job, you have a lot of really fascinating interests, especially in promoting women leaders in the life science industry. Tell me what got you into that, and what you think the opportunities are to make changes in that absolutely essential arena.
So I've been interested in supporting the development of women leaders since I started my career. I grew up in Idaho, and when I worked there as a chemist, my parents were like, "Why are you wanting to leave?" Because I said, "I have to leave. I have to get out of Idaho, and I love the state. It's a really beautiful place." But I think I had the only job that I could have had, and I would probably still have that job today, because it wasn't necessarily the focus of the state at that time was not to build in the life sciences, and it wasn't to build technology. So I had to move someplace else. And in doing that, I, got some pretty good exposure for my own personal self, for many times me being the only woman in the room. Around team tables, around, I was in the science arena. So, this is, 25 plus years ago, I was the only woman in the room. And so I started asking the questions like, how is it so that, there aren't more women that have pursued life sciences or something along the, the path of pharma and biotech? So I got involved in a number of different women's organizations, in one including the Healthcare Business Women's Association, which I've been a member of for about 20 years. And then in addition to that, just my own personal passions of supporting, women and an organization to see the potential to help raise awareness and to start behavioral changes to kind of exercise the brain muscle around how to think differently. And when they're interviewing or when they're considering a candidate pool, how do you make sure that it's a diverse pool of candidates? How do individuals talk differently to each other? How do individuals have different biases? So all of these kind of fascinating, more, obviously way out of my wheelhouse, but very passionate interests. And within Amgen, I started leading their women's organization as their global head or global chair, and their chair of an ATO chapter approximately 2 years ago. And in doing that, I've helped to look at our own organization and what we need to be doing to help pave the way to not only support diversity and the interesting, facts that come with that, and having a diverse table. There's a lot of research that shows, that has very positive business impacts. But then also the inclusiveness. So it's not just having the people around your table, it's how you listen, it's how we all think and process through a global lens. So I've loved the work, and I would love to share it with others. I love to get others excited about it. But it goes beyond, again, seeing the differences. It goes to the mindset of the individual, saying that, there is a benefit of having differences in the room, and I actually want those differences so that better outcomes and better results, better innovation can actually be the result of our business solutions.
What actions have you been able to take to make sure that your team is diverse, your team has women on it? I mean, are there things you can do that are sort of good examples of how to make that change?
Sure. There's always an opportunity to make a comment to say, hey, why am I the only woman in the room? Let's get in some diversity here and, to really call it out. There's nothing wrong with that. There's some courage that has to come when you see a room that doesn't reflect me. There's opportunities that I see for anybody to actually make a comment around the need for that diversity. Because when we all start thinking similarly, we all live in the same fish tank or drink the same Kool-Aid, innovation is going to go out the door. So the minute that I, as a team lead, and I'm worried about, strategy and the dynamics of our, again, our business solutions, the one thing that I want is for people to bring to the table some interesting thoughts that are going to be maybe counter to mine, that are going to complement and think about something uniquely different so that we're turning over every rock to look for potential solutions. So there's nothing wrong with calling it out by making sure that when I'm looking at candidates for interviewing and when I'm, talking to my HR or other colleagues, making the comment about making sure that they have a diverse pool of candidates, and that diverse pool of candidates can be gender, race, color. It's expansive. So, and they can't all be from the same university. Love KGI, but they can. But understanding where those diversities come from is really important to make sure that you don't fall into the trap of groupthink.
Yeah, obviously I agree. I'd love to have the problem that KGI graduates are so dominant at Amgen that we have to worry about limiting their numbers. Again, like I say, we boast about I think 60 or 62 or something like that. Way overwhelming anything that Amgen can. Let me ask you, what is the role of mentors, and have you had a mentor in your career or mentors, and have they been helpful or could they be helpful?
Actually, in our women's organization, I started a mentoring program back in 2014, and the women's organization at the time mentored 40 women, and now just in Thousand Oaks we mentor over 100, both male and females, through the program. And the mentors they range from director to vice president level, and now we've spread it to multiple different chapters of our women's employee resource group. So hundreds of women are being mentored across Amgen. So what is mentoring? It has many different facets. There's always, I call it like in lane and out of lane. So you've got in lane mentoring, which is going to tell me in my business, how am I going to get to the next level? What are the technical skills and the technical competencies that I need to be demonstrating and sharpening so that I can grow in that capacity? And then there's also out of lane, which are the softer skills, the business skills, the things that a lot of times a direct line manager is a little reticent to talk with their staff about because it doesn't always come up. Because in a one-on-one with staff, we're typically focused on business performance, delivering against your goals. And so the mentoring that I really encourage people to prioritize is that which focuses on the softer skills. It focuses on demystifying those things that they usually don't hear about, which can include business, financial, and strategic acumen. How are those three things impacting how you're thinking and the work that you're doing, and how are you able to ladder up to those things in the work that you are delivering? So a lot of times we're focused, again, on the day-to-day tactical, but a really strong mentor is one that can pull you out. And some of the, early in my career at Johnson & Johnson, my mentors were very keen to help me focus on the business aspects of my deliverables. Everything I did was for the company. It was for a very strategic deliverable and business outcome, and it actually was okay if it failed. And there were many times where the things that I embarked on failed. And that was okay because we at least tried and then we could learn from them. And so having a mentor that can help to instruct these components of the business side, as well as someone who can help you sharpen how you show up to work, bringing your whole self and your best self to work, as well as how you can extract and bring the best out of others. Those three components are really what a mentor can help to get you focused on, that a lot of times in our own in our own swim lane, we're not able to get, or we don't get the diverse thinking exposed to, we don't get exposed to that diverse thinking, so that we're thinking about situational deliverables and encounters with a different lens.
What do you think makes you a good leader?
But I'm always trying to develop the next leader behind me. I really believe, my best leadership is that I want to get out of the way and help the next leader emerge. I don't want to be stalemate. And again, I want to be diverse in my thinking. So getting me into different situations where I learn and grow and where others can learn and grow helps your organization. And by just being somewhere and sitting still doesn't necessarily help to support the change and the growth and the flexibility and evolution that organizations need.
Where do you think you're going to be in 10 years? And I won't tell Bob Bradway that you're going to be the CEO of Amgen. But more seriously, what do you see the trajectory of your career? What else? What other kinds of you've accomplished an enormous amount, and what are some of your future goals?
Retirement at California Beach. That is what I aspire to, right? So, I wish I had a crystal ball to look down the future and say, where am I going to be? I love to build companies. I love to build and to go into a situation that is ill-defined, a lot of uncertainty. Rules aren't necessarily fixed. And that's where I have learned to thrive. That's my passion, is to create and do fit for purpose strategy and process, not to over process, and to, help an organization thrive so you're meeting the deliverables. In the case that I've had in my career, it's for patients. So much of my passion comes because I've known or been around patients in my life that benefit from products out of the industry. And I'm a strong believer in where we have come in even my own time in seeing the strong health benefits that we can provide, as well as knowing that we're just taking a bite out of the apple.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be great when you get that crystal ball. Please, if you would be kind enough to share it with us, we'd all love to see where that's going to go. One of the things in sort of looking at the retrospectoscope, the other direction, obviously, a lot of the students sort of face what I consider a really high quality problem, and that is they get multiple offers, before their graduation, and they often ask, well, gee, should I go to work for a small company or a large company? And my sort of off the cuff answer is yes. Which is totally uninformed and doesn't really help them at all. But it has been my feeling that, whatever. I mean, pick the people, whatever it might be. What would be your advice to young people who have that? And I won't even call it a problem. I would call it an opportunity.
Yeah, when I first joined in my career, I was at a small organization, and a small organization or a large organization are completely different. They offer staff different developmental opportunities. And structurally, what you're getting out of a small organization is you're really investing your time and your career in the leadership team. When you're going into a large organization, you're investing it into the strategy and the mission of the well-established organization. But in either organization, it is our individual responsibilities to maintain entrepreneurial. A lot of times people think, well, if I go to a small company, I'm going to be able to wear all these many hats and I'm going to be able to do things that are outside of my scope or my reach. And I say, you can do that at a big company too. No one puts the handcuffs on you when you walk in the door. So you can still find those same facets of creativity and providing your best in any situation. And don't ever let an organizational structure dull you or dumb you down. So go to a company that you believe in, that excites you, that makes you lit up in purpose, because that's what will get you to work every day.
Fantastic advice and counsel, and obviously comes from experience. Have you had any situations that are sort of made you face ethical kind of challenges? And again, I wouldn't want any kind of details for any company, but I often tell the students that, if there's a serious ethical issue, you have to take a stand. And you cannot compromise in any way your credibility or your ethical standards. Have you ever been faced in your career with anything like that, or is that or not?
I can say that I've been very fortunate that I've not ever seen a situation where it teetered on the edge of being unethical. I have been made aware of them, but they were not in my direct line of sight. I've been at organizations that have typically been true to the mission and true to understanding that the work we do and the quality of the work that we do impacts millions or thousands or hundreds of people, depending upon the product. And so we have to be cognizant of that, and we would never want to cut corners. So that's one of the things that I've loved about the industry that I'm in. It's the cornerstone of quality is true to science and true to manufacturing and true to how we execute, in the pharma and the biotech industry. And so that's really why I think it's resonated with me and my values.
Thank you. Because I think one of the kinds of things that is so different in the life sciences industry is you do make such a difference in people's lives. And I know every once in a while when we're sort of talking about our programs that are so obviously closely related to you in the industry, people say, well, you can make more money doing other things. And it's just, yeah, well, do it. That's fine. If that's satisfying to you, go ahead and do it. But to me, being able to say I made a difference in one person's life makes it worth doing, and that's the. I mean, I agree with you completely. You need to want to do that.
One of the things that our company does, two things. Well, we do a lot of things. Great. Okay. So, but every year we get exposed to at least a handful of different patient stories, and that is so inspiring for us to continue. I mean, our time horizon for developing products is, 15, 20 years sometimes. And it's a lot of money. So it's a little bit of a slog, right? So it's not like you're just churning out, a fun widget in a 12-month period. And so understanding that you've really helped and contributed and impacted someone's life and helped them get back to work or help them feel better or help them enjoy retirement or time with their grandkids or time with their children, that's really what life is about. It's about connection and feeling, a bigger part of the whole. And so the other thing that we do really well, and I've seen this at Amgen as well as across our industry, is training on compliance and ethics. There's a lot of focus to make sure that everyone realizes that this is a cornerstone for the industry.
Again, I know we don't have that crystal ball, and no one can really accurately predict what healthcare is going to look like in a decade or 2 decades or whatever. But clearly, price pressures are going to increase, and they're not going to go away. And I know. I guess the way to state it is I see too many articles in the New York Times about a couple of people or a couple of companies that are sort of out on the edge, doing some stuff that I would argue is morally questionable, raising prices and things like that. How do we, as those of us who are so dedicated and passionate about this industry, how do we deal with those sort of folks and explain exactly what you've articulated so well? That this takes a lot of time and a lot of money, and there are really an enormous number of people who are doing it who care, because the outliers get the news.
Yeah, there are some, I consider them the bad actors, and they do get the news because, in the news, everybody likes a bad story. Nobody likes the good stories. So I really do think that we're going to start seeing some good things emerge. I think that we're at a tipping point now where there are a lot of price pressures and there's a lot of questioning about the healthcare system in the US in general. But those price pressures have been increasing for 10 years. So I've seen them kind of ratchet up and up and up. I think that, we're having the conversations and that's what's important, but no one group or no one entity can solve this alone. And we all have to hold hands in this. It's everything from industry, government, hospitals. We spend an exorbitant amount of money on the healthcare industry globally. And we have to understand the risks and the benefits that comes with. And like I say, I think that we're going to be seeing, this won't go away anytime soon. When I think about, the 10-year horizon, in my lifetime, I've seen the top 10 sellers of products go from small molecules to large molecules. And now we're working on products that I never even could have conceived about. We're doing things with genetic technology and being led by genetic research in a way that the technology hasn't even caught up with the science. So that is where I see, we're going to have even more opportunities to understand what's feasible in healthcare. But it comes at a cost. Every time that you develop a new technology, CRISPR technology, for example, those things cost money. And then you have to figure out, how do you use them? How do you harness them? Sometimes technology doesn't deliver today, but it's going to in 10 years from now. And so you have to invest in understanding how it can be used. And so all of this, it's a bigger cost. It's not just the cost of one product.
Totally agree. I mean, I think one of the things that gets lost in this kind of discussion, yes, prices have gone up for drugs. There's no question about it. But so have what the drugs do. I mean, you didn't pay $50,000 for your Mercedes 30 years ago, and it was a different Mercedes. Well, everybody's fine with that. Okay, it's a different thing. It's got electronics. It's got, whatever gadgets and stuff. And now we have, as you said, cures for diseases that we didn't even think could ever be treated. I am I don't know, old enough to remember when it was the dogma that we would never treat viral diseases. Well, okay, that's wrong, gone. I remember the discussion saying, gene therapy is just on the horizon and will always be there. Well, it's working. So I mean, part of it is they just do so much more, and we have to adjust to that, and that's that's sort of part of what we have to deal with. I think as you say, a consortium of academia, medical schools, pharmacy schools like we have as well, and corporations that are of such high quality as Amgen.
I think what's important to recognize is we don't all have to agree. The debate is actually really okay. The debate actually takes us to a better place. So just because we're having the debate, we don't have to be angry. We don't have to look at this and think that we are in a bad place. Having the debate is actually the best part of the problem because we'll get through it and we'll find a better solution. I can remember in college, long time ago, one of my papers in my undergraduate degree was about the ethics of using gene therapy. Now, you think about that. I'm like, the ethics of utilizing things that now, we've cloned we've looked at clone, we've looked at the genes, we've looked at 23andMe, like all of these different companies have popped up. And, 30 years ago, we were like, oh, should this even be possible? And now we're looking at it saying, how can we harness it for technology's sake? And how can we help us make better decisions and help us find cures and problems? So, everything goes through a different lens. It's all based upon, again, continuing that debate and having the healthy dialogue.
Vanessa, it's been a delightful conversation. And as you say, the conversation is the fun part. So from KGI, from all of us here, thank you so much. And we look forward to more discussions in the future. Thank you.